Welcome everybody to the Smash Factor. I guess actually, technically, not the Smash Factor. 2020 Safeway Open live chat. A lot of guys got in today and got into the Slack and left a ton of questions, so that's awesome. Glad that everybody took advantage of that. We'll start there here in just a second. First, I got Tambo with me. Tambo, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm living that hotel life right now, so it's always a little bit dark when I'm on these E9s because every time seems to be when I'm on the road. But excited, man. We got some good golf. This is a great tournament, great field, and then of course we got some football that we're going to get into after a little bit of a break. But yeah, happy to see all the questions in the Slack today. Should make for a good E9 this week.
It should. I'm looking forward to it. Tons of questions. Before we get into them, is there anything since Monday? I saw some of the chat. We had a guy in Slack that was live today, and he had a ton of interesting tidbits. And then he also got a couple of the guys to shout out ALS Warrior Kevin, which was awesome. I don't know how to, I think it's Sky on 76. He can correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe, because I've talked to him before, and I think he also has a son or a kid that's autistic. So we've went back and forth a little bit, but did a good job on the course, got some tidbits. We know those, you take them for what they're worth. They're always good info, but like I wouldn't live or die on that information compared to what I've done all week. But sometimes it does help. Looks like he asked Adam Scott what putter he was going to have, and Scott said the long putter. So something like that. Yeah. Something like that is valuable. Any takeaways from kind of one of the big, I can probably take care of about 10 questions, is the JT presser, which I watched myself. I don't think I'm as strong as what some guys may be moving, which to me, if the second lowest projected ownership in that range is going to go even lower, I don't mind staying on him. Do you have any thoughts there?
Just what you just said. Yeah, if the best player head and shoulders on the field is going to be low owned, I'm going to be on him in the Safeway Open. Like, I don't care if he looked tired or yawned or didn't really look into it. It's Justin. This guy's a beast. He's the best player in the field. There's Matsuyama, the Cantlays, the Scotts for sure. Those guys are great, but there's nobody in this field like Justin Thomas. This is his to lose. If he does, it's always it's 144 golfers. So obviously the odds are sick, but it is what it is. He's just better than the field. His stats line up. He looked great to end the season. I don't really care about that much. I do like pressers, but that doesn't change my mentality any, and I'm going to be on him heavy this week. So especially in like the $8, where I think he'll be lower owned for sure, and it seems like people want to go all balanced lineups.
Yeah, I don't. I guess he had a scare with melanoma, I believe is what it said. So he had some stitches, but I don't even know if he was going to be, I'd already baked in that he was going to be a little rusty regardless of anything he had done to him because he hadn't played in a while. And saying, I talked Monday on our pod with Nagels, was it's kind of a decision you got to make with a lot of these guys. Matsu, JT, none of them really played since, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Do I expect him to come out light hot? No, I expect him to be, maybe 3 or 4 under at the turn. At the cut, and hopefully, shakes off the rust enough that he goes out there and can shoot. He's got a 64 type number in him, and then have a chance to be in there. But this is just a strictly leverage play. If I would have ran the numbers and I thought Monday he was going to be one of the highest. I currently have him right above Cantley in that range. Sungjae and Matsu heading above, Scott up there, JT right below Scott, and then Cantley. I haven't looked at anybody else's yet. I always try to do that. We're going a little earlier than we do tonight, but I will try to look at some of the others that are out there in the industry. Not that it changes my opinion. I just kind of do mine the way I do it. But if it's a kind of consensus that Cantley's going to be the lowest owned, then it's kind of a DJ move for me. I mentioned that in the final thoughts tonight that, I'm going to take the guy who I think pedigree-wise is the second best in this field. And he's going to be the lowest owned, especially under 15%. I don't mind. And I figured he would be, because I figured if someone's going to go up to 11-2, then they'll probably talk themselves into 11-6 JT over him, or you get a pretty good savings going down to Matsu. So I kind of thought Matsu or Scott, really.
So yeah, I think what you're saying, though, just as that you hit on the presser thing today, it's always that like late steam. I think your numbers are all pretty accurate. I just think JT and Cantlay might flip only because of this stuff, right? And now it's like, well, if
Sure.
he's not, I can go down one more and at least I'm still not on Scott or Matsu. They look at it that way. So it might be like where they're both 15 or something, right? And then a little more goes to Matsu. That, you're going to see a little bit of a change when we see stuff like this last minute. I'm just talking like 25 to 35 range for me on JT is what I'll be doing. But whether he shows up at 15 or 10, whatever, it's good for me. If he comes out and plays like I think he can, it's crazy to me. I think everyone's just overreacting to the 6 out of 6 thing. I've heard multiple sites now and guys on Twitter and everything. It's 2 events. Like, when have we ever taken a 2-game sample size and said, okay, let's change everything? It doesn't make any sense. And to my point in the chat today, someone brought it up. If you really think that that's the case, that you're going to have these lower ones, why in a field like this would you go super balanced in multi-entry or mass multi-entry when you should be trying to jam like 5 guys and just put a flyer in there because you already know it's going to be a low 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 6 is what you're thinking. So if you end up with 5 super solid studs and one that doesn't quite make it, at least you still cash and have upside. So I'm going for the big ones. I'm playing high-low here for me.
Yeah, I don't. Very similar. I have seen the feedback, and I discussed it a little bit Monday. Almost with an open answer or open question, however you want to look at it. That I don't know the answer because again, it's only a 2 tournament sample. A, and then B, it was 2 of the bigger fields you'll have on tournament. So even in the old setting, you still would have had a big MDF and about the same number come Sunday. But 150, I mean, even 70 or 65 and 153 is less than half last time I checked. So it really would have been a lot of guys getting cut no matter what. And so smaller fields, I don't think it's going to matter as much because you kind of, and this is a little smaller. I think we wind up with 140ish or so, something like that. I just, okay, even let's just say it is a thing. Like, I don't know how I'm not going to prepare to bank on a 5 or 6. I guess I just don't see the logic in what you change yet. And I'll do some study and analysis once I get 8, 9, 10 tournaments. But at this point, I'm like, aren't you still going to try to build to get 6? Like, I don't know what it changes.
You're always building to get. That's my whole point. But my point is, in a field like this, the difference between the 7K range and the high 6s and the low 7s is nothing, fantastic. It's not like a major where you see some serious dudes at 7,500 or 7,300 that are really solid golfers that are much better than a guy at 69 or 6,400. Here, there's really not that much of a gap. So it's not like I'm changing my style. I think there's a bigger gap at the top, and that's for sure. So if you really don't think all of these studs, what's the win equity at the top out of those 6 guys or 5 guys? It's huge. Between Morikawa, Cantlay, Thomas, Scott, Matsuyama, and Im, that's where the winner should come from. It doesn't mean it will. And then you still got your Brysons and your Molinaris that are right there if you want to be different that way. So I'm just saying, I think you should still build with those guys at the top and try and fit a couple of them in. And it's not a big difference at the bottom, even if you got to go low 7s and high 6s or all low 7s. If you're scared to go to the 6s, I'm just saying I don't see the reason to go a bunch of 8K guys just hoping on some 6s because somebody in this tournament, especially the $8, will have a JT Matsuyama lineup with a bunch of dudes that he just mixes around that combo. And if JT and Matsuyama do their job and the rest of those guys at the bottom, someone will have the combos that sneak through and you're dead. You're going to cash your balanced lineup. If it's something like a 1 to 3 max, like that $200 single entry, I got no problem balancing it out a little bit and getting a little bit more safety in there. Cause you only need to beat 225 guys or something. So I understand for that, but for the other, I don't see it, at that at all. I'm going to go big or go home.
Yeah. Well, I could go on forever right here on I think it's, and I really don't know the answer because I'm going to get blown up I think it's the biggest advantage I continue to have over 95% of DFS players is people struggle and don't understand the concept of building lineups. They don't. Even our guys, I can help as much as I can, but I'm not going to build their lineup for them. I never will. I try to teach theory and how I work around it. But, I would make the argument, I could say that the high 7s are just as likely to T20 as some of these high 8s, low 9. So, I mean, you can make that, I guess the way that I've always built, and this is before I even won, my first 100,000 was I never in golf, price didn't matter to me. Like it did in the sense I had to keep it under 50, but like I looked at the golfer and I was like, shit, I don't give a fuck if DraftKings says that he's 7,100. If I think he's a third best golfer, I'm going to like, he's the third best golfer to me. Like, I don't care. I think too many people worry about, well, they dictate the price at this, so he can't be that good. The fuck he can. You tell me the algorithms with DraftKings smarter than some of these guys, that research it like us? Bullshit. They don't. I mean, if they did, then it would come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every single week, and it doesn't. Football's a little different because you're isolated to a position. Very few. You're only going to have 8 to 10 quarterbacks in play every Sunday that legitimately would get played. You're only going to have there's spots you got to take in football, and price does matter because it lets you pay up at running back there's strategy there. Golf is golf. It's 6 guys, and there is some strategy, balance, stars and scrubs and all that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to play the 6 best guys that I think can make the cut and make a run come the weekend. Like if it happened to be that my lineup came in at $48,000 and it comes in at $48,000, that doesn't ever happen because I'm always going to have some of the top guys. But I guess I talk about it. I used to talk about it all the time. I probably haven't in a while. Like I don't even look at pricing when I'm building my model. Zero chance. I don't build it. It doesn't come into the factor to me at all until Wednesday night when I start to construct and I go, okay, I have to have a certain amount of guys in a range to make this mathematical equation work when I'm building 20 lineups. But other than that, I'm going to try to put the best. I'm building 20 lineups this week. I think 29 guys picked out. That's the best 29 guys with the equation that I work in, but I'm not really going to go into details on. So I know that all of them will fit. And then I go to work and I build it. So I think people overanalyze, which we're going to get into on football too, because there's some of that going on there. But don't worry about the price. Like play your guys, especially in this format and Safeway Open. If you like a guy that's 6,800, be on him. Like, don't regret it come Sunday because you're like, well, the guy 7,400 had to be a lot better than him. Well, who says? Like, I just don't get it. It goes all over me. I'm going to start with the chat questions. We got a few guys in the live one. Some of it we already addressed. A few people thought it was football live questions to start out. How would you rank Chez and Ryan Moore?
Yeah, I talked about it on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast with Kenny. I said it wasn't one of my T3POs, but it was for sure on the radar, and I was pivoting off Moore to go to Reavie. I like Reavie more. I know that I like Reavie more than Moore. I know that Ryan Moore has the history and whatnot, but I don't, even the ownership, it surprised me when you put that out because I feel like Reavie always goes under-owned regardless of price, especially when he's at a high price like 9,100. I feel like people will think it's too much. You can get 9,200, because you can get Morikawa right there, but then you got Morikawa as the number 1, which I think is accurate. But, you got Benny on there. You got whatever. I like way too many guys over Moore there to play him. So I got Reavie, and I got Morikawa, even Snedeker in that range that I like more. Again, I keep saying that. I apologize. More than Moore. Let's just say that. I like a lot more guys than Ryan Moore.
Yeah, and I've been told that I actually have him low. I've heard that some places have Reavie 20% or higher, which kind of really shocks me.
Well, the Moore thing is interesting to me just because the FanDuel situation. Obviously, This isn't FanDuel rankings. I understand that. I'm just saying that typically does translate a little bit where if people decide that he's a great play. Most people won't do like what I mentioned, where I'm going to only play him on FanDuel because he's a free square to me at that price. That's when you're saying, like you said, don't look at price, but in that case, you're kind of looking at value for price. Sure. I'm popping him in. That's an extreme value to me. If he misses the cut, then so be it. But that's a little bit different than what you just mentioned. But over here, I think it'll still translate a little bit where people still think he's a good play, and he's at the bottom range of that 9K, and no one really wants to play Leishman. You don't hear as many people. That last week you saw Benny Ann was lower owned. Not as many people were on him. So it's sort of one of those guys that you just feel like people want to be on him more than a guy like, Phil Mickelson or Steele, much different prices, but guys that have the history here that people are just happy to write off, myself included. But this is a guy that's still there that they think that can come out and play. So we'll see what he comes out at. It'll be a really interesting one. I think you picked a good number. It just feels to me, like I said, that'll come out a little bit more, but you can never tell up front with these things.
I was actually surprised at, I tried to bump down Morikawa because I didn't feel like he'd be talked up a whole lot, but I think some of the, obviously, new kid on the block did well, and then he's a Cali kid, so that kind of narrative continued to spike in some of the stuff I listen to and read, and then just kind of looking at historical kind of things. The Reed one's tough for me. I can see him definitely, like you mentioned, he could be a guy that's a flip flop come tomorrow. If people see, if I'm one of the low guys on him, I can imagine some guys going, "Oh, well, I'm not playing a chalky Reed," so then he becomes the guy that was supposed to be chalk, doesn't be chalk type deal, which I talk about a lot during the main season. So I could easily see that. I'm not afraid to play him. I think for um, some of the things that I've confirmed with guys on the course that like the soup is struggling to even keep these greens alive right now. It's that hot and they're just not. It's like they're in shock, right? They've never had 100-degree on normal, so it's going to be all but hot. Not hot this week, but it's going to be firm, fast. Um, I think the guys playing early tomorrow for sure have an advantage. So if you're playing round one showdown, and then all of my first round leader bets were all early guys because I think if they can get some overnight dew and it's supposed to be low, I mean it's going to be cooler in the morning. Maybe have a little bit better to attack the pin. So I want guys. I kind of talked about the final thoughts. I really am focusing on guys that aren't going to cost themselves the tournament the first 2 days until these temperatures cool down. The greens get a lot of water on them. My real focus is I'm going to play the best 6 guys to get through the cut and let what happens on the weekend happen because anybody can go out here and just go low on any given round. So I'm not focusing too much on I just want guys that are going to get through, hit fairways, greens as best they can. And all those guys we mentioned are in that category. You just can't play them all, right? You can't play $6,000, $9,000 guys. So is what it is. But I think there's a lot of unique spots this week that'll be interesting. I think Bryson at 5'6" is playable to me. I think talent wise, I mean that's a leverage spot if you're looking for one. I think Benny On, who I still haven't committed to, at 14% is playable. I think he could come in a little higher. I could see him eating some of the Reeve and closer than the one that's shown right there. And then you get down to the veterans down below, and that's just most of them. I really thought Grillo was going to be kind of chalky, but it was equally for as many people that were on him earlier. There was a lot of people that just said, "No, I don't." He can't putt. He sucks around the green. If he misses greens, he's out. Which is history here shows that he at least has some success. So I'm not opposed to that. I don't mind him, and especially if people are going to dodge him, I certainly will take some leverage there. Let's see. More or less an overall strategy hedge question. Do you typically remove players from your DFS pool that you're betting on in the event that they perform poorly so you aren't losing on both fronts? Me personally, it's probably the other way. Like my DFS pool, which we just ranted on, is I'm going to build it with the best guys. I don't care if I bet them or not. There are times I will say if I pivot or if there's someone that I like, but I don't think it's going to fit my model, or not my model, my kind of final player pool, I may bet on someone because I'm missing out on DFS side, but I don't do the vice versa. I don't know about you, or I know you don't bet as much, but I definitely won't remove someone from my DFS pool because of bets. That certainly is not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I make some bets for sure. And normally it's not that. Like sometimes it'll just be a spot where, like Scheffler last week, I really liked his betting number in the field more than I liked playing him at like 20+%. So I'm not even really doing it to hedge, even though naturally it becomes one by definition. But it was just, I like his value somewhere else because betting, I don't got to worry about ownership. It's just me betting against the book. We're all on the same team type deal. So I do sometimes joke that I think in a sense on betting, that you don't normally I say see the community bets quote unquote hit very often, but we've seen some in the past. You've been on guys with Baroff and Feinberg and whatnot, and situations where it has paid out. So Woodland, when Feinberg and myself and a couple other guys hit Woodland at the U.S. Open there, that was a one that hit. But I don't hedge against that type of stuff. You're not really gonna. It's so hard to do it too. Like what do you do? Let's use Sam Ryder. Let's say he's popular. I know he's only 5.5%, but let's just say he was 10. And he's 20-1, 7.5-1. Well, what if he comes 29th? Now I just fucked myself in both spots. I don't hit my 20-1 bet for the money, and I didn't use him in DFS, and he paid plenty of value for 6,800 with a 25th place. So yeah, there's no real benefit to that in my eyes. I don't think so.
No, I mean, same way. I think ownership would dictate me getting off someone that I like in general, and I may have a bet on them, but I definitely. It's a good question though. I mean, something that probably hadn't got asked.
Definitely a good
one. 20 lineups I'm experimenting with in the fall season. Do you guys use max one or two golfers in lineups, say 30% ownership or 6 to 20. In general, and I'm making some updates to my process because I've kind of switched it, and I definitely will switch it with the T65 if I think there's some information there. But I would say if I'm building 20 or more, I rarely get above 45% on one guy. That's probably more of the extreme. I like to have a tight core. So I'd rather have like 8 guys at 25 to 35% than have like 2 at 45% and have to pivot off there. That's kind of, especially, and the more I do, the less max out I'm going to be on someone. Like if I'm doing 50 to 100, I doubt I have anybody over 35%. What about you?
Pretty similar, but I mean, that question is one we talk about all the time. It's not to shove it under the rug, but it's unanswerable. Like there's no right way. There's guys that I know that are top tier DFS players that win all the time in multi-entry that play 70% of a guy, and they live or die by that sword, because back to what we always talk about, you only got to hit, once every X amount of times. And if that golfer goes off, they're there, but their risk reward is obviously tougher, right? They've got a tougher path because they're risking all of it on a 70% golfer that if he misses the cut or tweaks his back, all that money's buried for this week, and they move on to the next week. And so again, that's a risk versus reward thing. I'm like you personally. I don't like to go over 40% in my multi-entry pool, or mass multi-entry, but I will go as high as 60 in a situation like a 20% or 25% owned DJ at the RBC Canadian Open. Well, I'll just blast him out of the water because I love that play. And I feel like it's bad if, almost, over 7 out of 10 lineups aren't going to have him. I'm going to make sure I massively leverage that situation every time.
But I was going to say, I know one of the times I did it was at the WGC Mexico when DJ was like 11%. And I that was the highest I've ever bid on somebody, and he obviously won it. So it worked out. And I mean, that's happened before and it not work out, like you said, but there are times, especially if one of the guys I'm heavy on happens to be one of the more popular guys, because normally I try to be contrarian a little bit, because the talent here is so small. I kind of try to mimic it. I try to repeat it every week in Gust's Final Thoughts, because you're talking about half to 3/4 of a stroke per round on some of these guys. And I think the illusion is they're thinking of like, same mistake happens in NFL. People think that these guys are like, there's a huge gap between the Dolphins and the Chargers. Well, there's not. I'm just telling you, there's not. There's coaching, there's all that, but a team traveling across the country giving up 17 points, I'm going to take the home team. These guys are great, and the comparisons of the Bama can go beat Dolphins is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life, and it pisses me off.
You're stealing my thunder for later, Gup. Just so you know.
Same thing with golf. So if I feel like someone I love is way up there, typically I just try to go to the next level and say, hey, I'll take that spot and fade it, and then I'll hammer down. But if it's someone I'm going to stay on, like DJ, then like you said, I may go 60, but it's a rare deal. But there's no wrong answer there to your point. That's a good point to say. Work your strategy, especially if you are doing that in the fall swing. Say you're doing like the $1.20. That's a great time to just practice and try some different strategies and see how it works out. We already talked about the T60. Playing JT and how he returns value in this field. If he doesn't win our top 3, are you giving up upside, or can he top 10 and still return value? So it's a tough hindsight question. In theory, if you do the numbers, the DFS dollar, you would say he has to top 3. What we don't know is what the field's really going to do in the tournament. It could get down to Sunday, and I'll give you an example. Let's say Ortiz wins it and JT finishes 8th, and you have both. I'm gonna take a limb that you probably do. And let's say your other 4 are like top 30. JT finished 8th doesn't mean you're not going to win money because he didn't top 3. Because if you have a guy but if Matsu wins it, or one of these other popular guys, yeah, you're in trouble because now you've lost leverage and they're highly owned as well. But back last year when I had one of my big cashes, Michael Kim or whatever, the dude that's missed like 40 cuts, but he has one win in the middle of it. When he won it, like he was 0.9% owned. So it didn't even fucking matter who you had below that. It was irrelevant. So it's hindsight question. Theoretically, math-wise, if you put it to it, yeah, he needs the top 3 to return value, but it doesn't mean you give up leverage per se. I don't know your thoughts on that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Very similar, but like you said, that's just so bland in the fact that it's a one-off thing. Like you said, that's almost like saying if the team's projected for this point total at home, they have to win by that or whatever. The fact is Scott's never even played here before. Matsuyama's success here was from 13, 14, and 15, which is over 4 years ago. Sung Jae Im, what if he burns out? I know the guy plays a bunch of tournaments that doesn't look like he's going to. Can't lay, you never know. And what if JT comes 10th, but he's the only one that makes the cut, or the rest of the guys are 50th? It's think about how people are going to build their lineups. And to your point with the Ortiz, how those combos are going to look. Right. They're naturally going to have, if two cheap dudes make their way up the board, or three of them, like something like last week where there was quite a few cheap guys up the board, he's just naturally going to be in the lineup, even if he's 12th. But it depends on the other guys around him. If none of those other guys around him show up and they have those three cheap guys, back to my stars and scrubs, he can still be in that winning lineup because plus he makes a lot of birdies and he scores DK points. So who knows how many?
That was the 2 points I had. Was one, you can finish 10th and finish higher score. And the second one is naturally, and this is some of the stuff I hope to get into in Christmas time. We do some extra pods, but one thing you can do when you're taking a guy that's going to be lower owned, that's the highest price in the field, naturally when you take him, your construction, your organic build of your lineups are going to be different than most people. So it already puts you at an advantage if your guys hit, because most people they're not looking at the same 5 guys because you're starting with less salary, and naturally you have to make moves that others aren't. So even if you finish as like 12th, I mean, you could have the right build elsewhere, otherwise that works out. So the answer, but it's a good one, but it's definitely lineup theory, building theory stuff that's in depth that would take us, hours to kind of go into, but we'll get there at some point. But good question. Any win concerns? I heard similar to last year, probably not as bad. The morning's going to be pretty good all 4 days. Nothing that's not usually here this time of year. So the guys that play there are used to it. Nothing crazy. It's really, really hot right now. They're soaking the greens tonight. It does not mean that they're going to be soft in the morning, but temperature's supposed to, like I said, today was 99, heat index like 103, and the high tomorrow I think is like mid 70s, high 70s. So dramatic change tomorrow, but course will be dry and it'll run out. And I think some of the approaches are going to be a little different. I think it's going to leave, depending on how they set the pins, I assume they'll set them up a little easier tomorrow because you can't go pin hunting if you got dried out greens. But could be a lower scoring tournament, which I have adjusted my personal stuff down a little bit, thinking that it could be a tough start for these guys. Next question was, any Bud Cauley love? I'm on him. He actually has made my next to last pool that I talk about a lot. He's in my pool. I don't know about you.
He's actually one of my late ads. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. If you asked me, did I get on anybody since, the pods or anything that I brought up? Bud Cauley's one that I dug a little bit more into, and not just his history, but his iron capability, is around the green. His scrambling is like, I think, number 1 in the last 50 rounds. And I really think scrambling is going to be important here. So I did add Bud Cauley to my pool at a decent clip. So I don't have any of my numbers yet because I haven't actually finalized my builds. You just brought up a good point. And now that we're on the E9 behind the paywall type deal, I'm going to tell you right now, and you hit on it earlier, I think there's an AM PM advantage here based on, not that they're going to be slower greens in the morning like you just said, but they're going to be fast for everyone. But we know the POA can get bumpy. 6 of the last 7 winners here have come from the AM, and that's a lot to do with it. And like you said, with that heat this year and the way it's coming out, some adjustments to be made for guys in the afternoon. I'm going to probably run 50% of my lineups AM PM. I'll probably run 20% PM AM just in case that backfires, hedged against it that way. And then I'll run the other 30% with my best players. As far as a single entry goes, I'm probably just going to run my best lineup, my best values that I think, and just take my shot. But because I don't think it's that crazy, but I'm just saying I'm going to take a stand and sort of be greedy when others are fearful. I don't think many people are building like that this week, and I'm going to go after it. So I'm going to go AM PM wave for a lot of lineups.
Yeah, I know that tools that I want to say the only 5-figure guy that's AM is Matsu.
I believe you're right.
On potentially being, I was choosing between 2 or 3 guys trying to make my final pool, and that was one of the things I noticed is that I think, if I'm not, I know he is for sure. I just don't think anybody else. I think Cantley, JT, M on. I believe they're all PM. So again, could give him a huge advantage if you're on the, you're flipping a coin trying to get your last high guy out there. In the $44, what do you think would be more popular, Stars and Scrub or Balance? What was that this week? 3,000 people, I think, or so. So I guess I would lean more people would go towards Balance, but I do think there's such big names up there that people are going to at least start with one. So I'd kind of call it a hybrid. I think you'll have a lot of lineups will have someone up there up top, but I don't know if it'll go strictly scrubs. It may be like a high guy and then like a bunch of, like, I think the 8K range could be dead type deal because people are trying to fit in as many sevens without having to jump down to six. I don't know if you have an opinion there or not.
No, I think you nailed it. I think that's pretty much the case. If they do go high, they're going to go one high. So you're going to see like a JT, someone Streelman type thing, like a JT Reeve Streelman or a Matsuyama, Moore, someone. It's just going to be lineups like that, or fairly balanced where they're going to try and go with those 3 9K guys again because they've seen that work out. I'm going to go more, JT Cantlay, for example, and stuff like that. So again, I think in the $44, which is where I'll play probably 20-30 this week, probably going to see a lot more balanced lineups just because it's a smaller field and people want to just try and get their 6 out of 6s through. So they'll try and balance it with 3 9K guys or 1 10K guy, 1 9K guy, and then 4 high 7s or something.
Yeah, because I think if you go start with like a JT and a 9K guy, you have to get uncomfortable down low, no matter which way you go. So I mean, you can play around with that and kind of see what build it shows you. But I can tell you, most guys won't want to do that, and they'll back off at JT and they'll go, well, I can drop down to whoever for 10-2, 10-1, and come up from an uncomfortable zone to that kind of mid-7 range where I think there's going to be a lot of action.
Right.
Thoughts on our guy, HP3? I'm in. He's in my pool. He's in my final pool, I can tell you that. Played this course great. Sets up good for him. If it is running out, it actually is an advantage to a guy like him and a Furyk because those guys that hit fairways anyways, and now they get a little bit more run out, so they have a shorter club in than they would have. Guys that you can rely upon to hit fairways more, this could give them an advantage. With a run out. So I even increase guys like that's where a Reeve, a Furyk, a HV3, an Armour, if he was here, could get in a leg up. Not a leg up, but now they don't have as 2 clubs back from some guys. They may actually get an 8-iron, where some of these big guys still may be, a wedge or something. But there's a difference between a wedge and an 8 than an 8 to a 6 if you don't play a lot of golf. So I think it could be an advantage to a guy like that. And he's obviously very comfortable around this course. So I have no issues with HV3, especially at this price.
Yeah, no, I'm on him. I talked about him as well. He's a 4 for 4 made cuts here with a 14th and a 15th as well, and played well at the Greenbrier. So, I mean, if you watch his interview today, he's, like I said, I don't really care about JT being sluggish or having, a melanoma, surgery or whatever you want to call it, a little bit of a fix up there. But Varner's always very calm and collected. I think he'll be fine here. I think he suits the course well from his past history, and he played well at Greenbrier, so it's all going to translate over. Love his price here, too. I think he's way too cheap.
I agree. Looks like M is also in the morning. So M and
I was just checking that. Yeah, it's M and Matsu is who it is. Yeah.
Adam Long, any thoughts there? He is on the bubble to making my next to last right now. I think I can go there. He's 8-ish%, 9-ish% down there, I believe. I have no issues with it if you want to go there. He's obviously showing the highest in the 6, but very, very rarely do I worry about the ownership in the 6 because normally they come in a little lower than you think, and from the top to the middle, it's all pretty much spread out. And again, back to the old, that still means 91% of people don't have him or Cameron Piercy or even Ryder, 95%. I mean, they're the top of that range, but I don't mind having Adam Long this week.
Yeah, I like him, but I still like Sam Ryder more. So I'll probably have. I didn't think Long would be much more than 10%. So you pretty much pegged the number exact at 8.9%. But I'll probably be somewhere around that, like 7 to 10 range on him, not because I don't want to leverage him. I want to leverage other guys. I'll probably have 20% Ryder, 15, 20% Ryder. So I'll be going on some guys in that range a little bit more, but I don't mind Long. And he's been good his last couple times out. Suits the course. His stats were still fine last week. It wasn't like he went off the board. He's been striking the ball really well. So don't mind him for the upside he's got. Obviously, he won a tournament last year, so we know he's got the stones when it comes down to crunch time. I forget who it was that he did it. Do you remember who he did it in front of? It was like Phil and somebody else, I think.
I know. Yeah, it was for sure Phil.
Yeah. Either
I
way,
remember. Yeah.
he had the nuts to get it done, and that really matters. So I like that in guys, and I think Long's the real deal. So I'll be on him at 6,900. Nothing crazy. I'm not going nuts with him, but I do like him.
No, and his recent form's been pretty solid. He hit the ball good last week. And he had one for you. He missed my next to last pull, so he's out of my pull. He's bubble. He was a bubble guy for me. Right there, top 60, top 70 type overall. He's struggling with his approach overall. He doesn't have the best. Last two best he's ever done is T41 with 2 missed cuts. I don't know if that matters. I mean, his putting splits on Poe aren't terrible. He's top 40-50%. He just missed he was just a last cut for me. And that's 20 lines. If I had 50 or 75, he may have made it. But what about you?
I was gonna get you to sell me off of him because he's one of the guys I'm looking into. I got a list here, a small list. I'm just trying to see my other notes from Monday, and of course I cut him off. I wasn't on him at all, but it's something turned me on to him this week. Did you bet him, Gup?
I did not. No, I haven't. I haven't really heard a whole lot on him at all. He's a fringe guy. He was a fringe guy for me from the get go. Didn't move much in my final. I think he dropped 2, but not a ton. Stats are decent off the tee and avoiding bogeys in green and reg, but he's in the bottom half of the field around the green, ball striking approach, and that kind of worries me, especially with some of the things you're hearing about the course.
I had the pool. That's good that you told, because that's what I was going to ask you. There was 3 guys. There was Colley, who I came around on, Hadwin, who I was not sure on still, and my last guy. I know it's not a question of if you were there yet, but just to ask you, what's your take on your boy Joel Dahman? That's the 3 that I had listed to have a conversation about quick on here because he's interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't have a good. He doesn't seem to start well when he's been off for a little while. I could probably bet him first round leader. I didn't even see where he went off at, but one of the guys I moved to, and I don't know where Dahman is price wise that I wasn't on Monday is Berger. I brought him in. Got word that he's been battling a lot of injuries, but he's as healthy and feels as good as he has in a while, and so his upside and his pedigree is a lot better than 7,500. So and the stats are great when he was healthy, right? You go back and look at kind of the rolling stats, and there's a spot play. Putting's about dead middle, so nothing crazy, but he's coming in at 4.7%. So 7,500, that's a range where there's a lot of chalky plays are going to be in there. A lot of people are going to drop when they're building lineups to that mid 7s. And so if I can pick a guy out of there that truly has potential and pedigree to win, we've seen him win at 4.7%. I added Berger to my pool. He was kind of the only guy I added late.
Yeah, I fucked that up. That's my bad. I said Hadwin, the guy, and that's why I said, did you bet him? Because it's something that made me stand out, and I was not on Berger. And then I think you had him first round leader and bet. And I was
Berger added.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that, and thank you for explaining, because that's a guy I was not on. That when I saw you added him, I was like, he must have found out something. So I figured we'd give it to the listeners too and ask you about that. It wasn't Hadwin, it was Berger I was interested in, and that's the one. So okay, good to know. Yeah. I don't mind him at his price, and like you said, look at his ownership. Definitely got upside. I mean, when he's on, he's on. So I don't mind that at all. I like that play, especially for mass multi-entry or for a differentiator in your 1 to 3 max if you want to go. He's a solid player. Like, there's upside there.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be afraid of him in a 1 to 3 max time, especially when you have a range like that where there's a ton of people going to fall to that range. And when I say fall, it means when you look at all the bills, no matter which way you're going up top or whatever, naturally in a field like this, a lot of people are going to fall to that 72 to 7,800 range because you have to, because most people are going to avoid the 6s this week. There's just not enough guys down there people are familiar with. And so if I can get a guy that's one on tour, kind of like you said with Adam Long, like he's not afraid to go in there and win on Sunday if he's healthy. And we have confirmation that he's as healthy as he's been in a year, apparently. So, from a trusted source. So I take that for what it's worth. I'll take that leverage and say I'd rather do it now than him top 10 this week, and then I never get him at 7,500 again the rest of the year. So it's 7:40. We're gonna wrap it up. Take about 10 minutes. Get back on at 8:00 my time, so 9:00 Eastern for the coin flip. Tambo, any final thoughts on this before we take a little break and go tuck my kids in and come back for the coin flip?
No, do your thing. I apologize. I even got people texting me saying, turn your lights on. It's literally every light this
Oh.
fucking hotel has. I swear to God, I got the HD camera that's spruced up. I got everything you can do here, and it's always the same shit. So I apologize. I'm happy that I can be on with you, but this is just the way the lighting is. And I'm on like the second floor that's like 10 feet off the ground. So if I just open up the windows, it's going to be wide open in here. I hate that shit. Like my privacy. So I'll try and get a little better for the next one, but I'm excited to talk some football and really excited for this golf tournament to get started. It should be a good one.
Yep. So we'll be back here in about 15 minutes for the coin flip, about 45, 50 minutes, action packed. I have a lot to say, and I'll probably piss some people off in the industry, but I really don't give a fuck. So I'd probably tune in. So we'll
by the way, too,
about 15 minutes.
Hey, you already stole my Miami take. Just so you know, I had it. I'm not going to just repeat what you said later, but I got a take on that too. So we'll talk about it when we get there.
All right. We'll see you guys here in a little bit.
I'm